Every healthy corporation relies on rhythm. Think of standard operations as a closed, repetitive loop. This is the line of business. These are the daily, predictable processes designed explicitly to maintain the status quo and keep the organization functioning without interruption. But growth requires breaking routine. A project is a temporary endeavor introduced to force strategic change, a distinct break from daily operations. To prevent chaos, this break is contained by 3 strict boundaries: a specific timeline, explicit scope limits, and a dedicated budget. Because a project intentionally disrupts established routines, it inherently carries a high degree of financial and operational risk. Controlling that risk requires turning project management into a rigid, quantifiable science rather than mere administrative oversight. The entire process begins with a single foundational document, the project charter. This formalizes a project's existence. It establishes the baseline requirements and grants the project manager formal authority to begin applying organizational resources. Moving from theory to execution requires a strict 3-step framework. First, it must be financially justified, then governed by a leadership structure, and finally, mathematically scheduled. Structural logic precedes action. No operational scheduling can occur until organizational alignment and capital viability are fully secured. The project charter evaluates financial viability using net present value, or NPV. This metric accounts for the time value of money. It determines whether projected future cash inflows mathematically justify the initial capital outlay required at year 0. This side-by-side data table compares 2 competing organizational strategies for a new initiative: a build strategy on the left and a contract-out strategy on the right. Looking strictly at year 0, contracting the workout appears vastly superior. It requires 30,000 Rand less in initial capital to launch, but capital degrades over time. By applying a discount rate, we compress the future value of the returns in years 1 through 4 into present value for both strategies. When we sum these discounted cash flows, the final calculation reveals a stark contrast: 33,815 Rand for the build model versus only 2,739 for the contract-out approach. Despite the massive upfront cost, the internal build strategy delivers a significantly higher net present value over the 5-year lifecycle. Capital allocation decisions require projecting and discounting future financial decay. The cheapest initial execution strategy rarely guarantees long-term viability. Once the charter is signed and capital is allocated via the NPV model, the organization must select a leadership framework to govern the execution. Traditional project management utilizes a rigid, hierarchical structure. This drives upfront planning and directs execution downward through formal change control systems. The traditional manager sits at the apex, acting as the primary authority and directly managing any resource overallocations. An alternative is the Agile, or Scrum framework. This approach removes the single manager role entirely to distribute leadership across the group. Responsibilities are divided. The product owner manages the backlog, the Scrum Master removes blockers, and a self-organizing team handles execution. The chosen governance structure dictates exactly how the project will respond to the operational constraints and schedules that follow. With a team in place, scheduling begins. The Critical Path Method, or CPM, is an algorithmic tool used to determine the shortest possible duration of a project. The process relies on a scheduled data log to track specific activities, map their dependencies, and estimate their individual durations. This network diagram visualizes the first step, the forward pass. This top-down analysis calculates the early start and early finish dates for every task. The mathematical rule here is simple. The early finish equals the early start plus the duration of the activity. When an activity has multiple dependencies, a specific rule applies. Its early start must match the highest early finish of all preceding tasks. The forward pass establishes the project's theoretical baseline, but it lacks the necessary data to determine where operational flexibility lies. To find that flexibility, we execute a backward pass. This is a bottom-up calculation, moving from the final project delivery date back to day 0. This pass calculates the late start and late finish dates. We find the late start by subtracting the activity duration from its late finish. Comparing the results of both passes gives us total float, commonly called slack. This is the mathematical difference between late start and early start. Activity E, producing the user manuals, provides an example of operational flexibility. Subtracting its early start of 20 from its late start of 45 yields a slack of 25 days. However, activities on the critical path have zero float. Any delay to these specific tasks directly compromises the final deadline. Identifying slack mathematically isolates exactly where a project manager can divert resources without jeopardizing the final delivery. The natural accumulation of the forward pass analysis dictates that the total project sequence will take 70 days to complete, but external reality rarely respects theoretical models. Suppose management injects a strict constraint that mandates final implementation in 60 days. When recalculating against this new constraint, the impact on activity G is immediate. The slack on final implementation drops from 0 to -5. This negative slack is a mathematical guarantee of project failure under the current operational constraints. To recover those 5 days, the team must utilize schedule compression techniques. They have to crash the schedule by adding more resources, or fast-track it by running sequential activities in parallel. These frameworks exist precisely to surface these operational and financial constraints mathematically. They allow leadership to engineer solutions long before capital is permanently sunk into a failing endeavor.